This dramatized story is inspired by real legal principles and historical public cases. It is presented for educational and entertainment purposes, with all interpretations attributed to verified sources. The courtroom was silent, the kind of silence that felt earned. Rows of tired faces stared forward as the verdict was read. A single woman stood at the plaintiff's table. No law degree, no pedigree, just determination sharpened by years of being ignored. Her name was Erin Blake. Across from her sat a line of corporate attorneys, polished, composed, representing one of America's largest utility companies, Pacific Gas and Electric. The judge lifted the papers from his bench. "The jury finds in favor of the plaintiffs," he said. The number that followed sent a shockwave through the room. $333 million. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The largest settlement of its kind in U.S. history, awarded not to a celebrity, not to a government agency, but to a group of ordinary citizens from a forgotten desert town. As cameras clicked and microphones rose, Erin closed her eyes. She wasn't thinking about money. She was thinking about the children she'd met, the ones whose water ran green from their taps, whose mothers whispered the word cancer like a curse. No one believed her at first. Now the world had no choice. The story rewinds to Hinckley, California, a dusty town between nowhere and nowhere else. Population, barely 2,000. One gas station, one diner, and a pipeline running beneath the sand like a buried secret. For decades, the residents trusted that pipeline, the water it carried, the company that built it, the safety it promised. Then, one day, a woman with no legal training, no connections, and no reason to believe she could win against a billion-dollar corporation, decided to ask a question no one wanted answered. What's in the water? It started with a file, a thin, forgotten folder buried in the back room of a small California law office. Erin Blake wasn't a lawyer. She was a single mother of 3 who'd talked her way into a clerical job after losing her last one. Her boss, Ed Masry, ran a modest firm known for small-town disputes, car accidents, property claims, nothing headline-worthy. The file was labeled Anderson vs. PG&E. It looked routine, a real estate case, a claim about contaminated land. But inside were medical records, handwritten notes, lab reports. The words chromium contamination appeared more than once. Erin frowned. Why would a real estate case have blood tests in it? She asked the secretary. No one knew, no one cared. But Erin couldn't let it go. She called the plaintiff, a woman named Donna Jensen, whose home sat beside PG&E's compressor station. Donna's voice trembled over the phone. "They told us it was safe," she said. "Just a little chromium to prevent rust." Erin drove out to Hinckley. What she found didn't look like a lawsuit. It looked like a slow-motion tragedy. The town shimmered under the desert sun. Children rode bikes past warning signs they couldn't read. Cattle drank from ponds that glittered the wrong color. And on every porch, someone had a story. Nosebleeds, miscarriages, rare cancers that doctors couldn't explain. She filled a notebook, then another, then a box of them. When she came back to the office, Ed raised an eyebrow. "What is all this?" "Evidence," she said. "You just don't see it yet." He sighed. "Erin, we can't sue a Fortune 500 company on rumors." "It's not rumors," she said quietly. "It's people." He watched her for a moment, saw the certainty in her eyes, and something in him shifted. "Fine," he said. "Show me proof." She did. She started with the wells, water samples, lab analyses. PG&E had promised residents their groundwater was safe, but test after test showed high levels of hexavalent chromium, a toxic compound linked to cancer and organ failure. The company had called it trace chromium, a harmless industrial additive. But the truth was buried in the numbers, readings hundreds of times above state safety limits. Erin laid the results across Ed's desk. "You said proof," she whispered. "Here it is." He exhaled, long and slow. "All right," he said. "Then we're in it now." That decision changed everything. What began as a local complaint became a war against one of the most powerful utility companies in the United States. A company with lawyers on retainer, lobbyists on call, and an image burnished by decades of charity and PR. But PG&E had underestimated their opponent. Because Erin wasn't motivated by money. She was motivated by the memory of mothers she'd met, standing beside kitchen sinks, holding glasses of poisoned water up to the light like confession. And when she spoke to them, they didn't see a paralegal. They saw the first person who'd listened. The deeper she dug, the stranger the patterns became. Medical records vanished. Public officials stopped returning calls. And every file she pulled seemed to lead to another, thicker, older, stamped, confidential. Then came the breakthrough. An internal memo dated years earlier. It read, "Trace levels of CR6 present in monitoring wells. Inform residents issue is limited to non-harmful trivalent form translation." They knew, and they lied. Erin sat alone in the office, reading the memo under a flickering lamp. The room felt suddenly smaller, heavier. She whispered, "They've been poisoning people for decades." By now, the firm had grown from curious to cautious. "Erin," Ed said, "if we push this, they'll bury us in motions." "You understand that?" "I do. They'll drag it out for years. We'll lose clients. We'll lose money." She looked at him. "Then, let's make it worth losing." The first letter arrived in a plain envelope. Inside was a lab report from a water testing company in Barstow. Across the bottom margin, someone had scrawled a single line in blue pen. "They told us it was safe." Erin stared at it for a long time. The handwriting shook slightly, as if the writer had hesitated before mailing it, part fear, part hope. It was the first of dozens that would follow. Each letter told a fragment of the same story: neighbors coughing blood, pets dying suddenly, wells sealed without explanation. What connected them wasn't emotion. It was coordinates. Every address traced back to the same aquifer feeding the compressor station. She pinned a county map to her wall. Every new complaint became a red dot. Within a week, Hinckley looked like it was bleeding. Erin's persistence began to test the patience of everyone around her. The clerks rolled their eyes when she carried in new boxes. Ed Masry tried diplomacy. "Erin, we can't spend the firm's life savings chasing a ghost." She countered with data. "It's not a ghost, Ed. It's chromium-6. He sighed. "You can't prove it's PG&E." She smiled faintly. "Not yet." Word spread that a law firm was investigating the water. Dozens of residents gathered in a worn-down community hall with ceiling fans that turned slower than the conversation. Erin stood on the small stage, a microphone squealing in her hand. "I'm not here to sell you anything," she said. "I'm here to ask, who here has been sick?" Hands rose. More than she expected. One woman lifted a photo of her husband, thin, bald, smiling from a hospital bed. Another man stepped forward holding a plastic jug filled with cloudy water. "This came out of my tap this morning," he said. Erin didn't flinch. She knew she'd just found her jury, not in a courtroom, but in a community betrayed. When PG&E finally responded, it wasn't with empathy, it was with paperwork, endless requests, audits, and legal noise. They called it standard procedure. Erin called it stalling. Her phone rang daily with strangers warning her to stop. One anonymous caller whispered, "You don't know who you're fighting." She replied, "You just told me." Late one night, she found it. A box of archived environmental audits mislabeled equipment receipts. Inside, field logs from PG&E engineers. One line stood out in neat technical handwriting. Evaporation ponds showing elevated chromium-6 discharge. Residents advised of no hazard. She circled the phrase "no hazard" 3 times. The next morning, she drove straight to Ed's house. He opened the door half asleep. She handed him the paper. "This," she said, "is our smoking gun." Ed blinked at the line. "If this holds up, they're finished." She smiled, exhausted. "Then let's hold it up." The firm filed a mass tort claim on behalf of 634 residents. Hinckley versus Pacific Gas and Electric. PG&E's defense arrived in a brief thick enough to be mistaken for a novel. The message between the lines was simple: "We will outlast you." But the town rallied. Erin turned her car into a traveling office, papers in the passenger seat, witness lists on the dashboard, water samples in the trunk. At every stop, she listened more than she spoke. She learned that justice begins with patience, and patience begins with pain. Weeks later, in a beige conference room lit by flickering fluorescent tubes, the first corporate witness took the stand. A PG&E regional manager, polite, practiced, confident. Reed Morgan handled the questioning. Erin sat beside him, notes in hand. "Did PG&E ever notify residents of potential groundwater contamination?" The manager hesitated. "We informed them that trace elements were present." "Trace elements," Reed repeated. "And what were those elements?" "Chromium compounds. Specifically, chromium-6." The pen in Erin's hand stilled. Reed leaned forward. "And were you aware that chromium-6 is a known carcinogen?" The manager's voice thinned. "I am not a medical expert." Reed didn't smile. "You don't have to be. You just have to read your own memo." He placed the internal report on the table, the one Erin had found. The witness looked down, then up, then said the words that would echo through the entire case. "We assumed the concentrations were too low to matter." Silence. The court reporter's keys stopped. For the first time, Erin saw the truth land, not as revelation, but as shame. PG&E switched tactics. They flooded the airwaves with reassurances, donated to local schools, sponsored cleanup drives. On paper, they were heroes. In the wells, nothing changed. Reporters called the firm reckless. Corporate spokespeople called the claims unscientific. And yet, every week another family signed on. Erin's house filled with case files. Her kids teased her that she lived at work. She just smiled. Someday, this will matter. By the second year, the firm was nearly broke. They sold assets to fund lab tests. Ed aged a decade in months, but Erin refused to slow down. One night, driving back from Hinckley, she passed a billboard glowing in the desert. PG&E, powering California's future. She pulled over, stared at the slogan, and whispered, "What about its past?" The next morning, a courier delivered a box from a whistleblower inside PG&E, anonymous, unmarked. Inside were photocopies of internal emails, executives discussing containment of liability and possible relocation of affected families before media exposure. Proof not only of knowledge, but intent. She handed the box to Ed. He stared at it for a long time. "Erin," he said softly, "this case just became history." The courthouse steps shimmered in the California heat. Reporters gathered shoulder to shoulder, notebooks clutched like shields. Some had come for justice. Most had come for spectacle. Inside, a battle decades in the making was about to begin. Hinckley v. Pacific Gas and Electric. To the corporation, it was a nuisance. To the people, it was survival. Erin sat behind the counsel table, watching jurors file in one by one. They looked ordinary. Factory workers, teachers, retirees, the kind of people who drank tap water without question. And that, she thought, was exactly the point. The defense opened first, smooth, polished, rehearsed. PG and E's lead attorney adjusted his tie and began, "Ladies and gentlemen, Pacific Gas and Electric has always been a pillar of this community. Yes, there were trace elements of chromium in the water, but they were well within safe limits. Science, not fear, must guide your judgment." He smiled, confident that the language of authority would hold. Then came the plaintiffs. Ed Masry rose slowly. His voice, gravelly but firm, carried through the room. "This isn't a case about science," he said. "It's a case about truth. About what happens when a company's promises evaporate faster than the water they pollute." He gestured toward the gallery, rows of residents from Hinckley, their faces lined with fatigue. "They didn't ask for lawsuits," he said softly. "They asked for honesty. The first witness was a mother named Lydia. Her husband had died 2 years earlier. She held up a photo, not for pity, but for proof. We thought it was just hard water, she said. Then the kids got sick. PG and E said it was fine. They said they tested it every month. Her voice cracked. They never told us what they found. Across the aisle, the corporate lawyers scribbled notes, avoiding eye contact. Then came the experts, geologists, chemists, environmental analysts. Each spoke the same quiet truth. The contamination came from the compressor station. Each showed graphs, charts, timelines, all pointing to the same conclusion. But none of it hit as hard as Erin's next witness. He entered wearing sunglasses, his badge turned backward. Former PG and E environmental safety consultant, the man who'd sent the anonymous box. He cleared his throat. "I was a part of the cleanup team," he said. "We were told to dilute the samples before sending them to regulators." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. The judge raised a hand for silence. "Did you comply?" Reed Morgan asked. "Yes," the man said, "because if we didn't, we'd lose our jobs." "And when did you realize people were getting sick?" The witness swallowed hard. "Too late." That moment became the trial's heartbeat, proof that the contamination wasn't an accident. It was a decision. PG and E's attorneys went on the offensive. They accused the plaintiffs of exaggeration, of hysteria, of chasing profit. One lawyer asked a resident bluntly, "Can you prove your illness came from our groundwater?" The man stared back. "I can't prove faith either," he said. "But I know when something's killing me." The gallery erupted in quiet applause before the judge's gavel cut through the air. By the second week, the strain showed. Erin had slept maybe 4 hours in as many days. But when she took the stand, the room seemed to hold its breath. The defense tried to paint her as reckless, emotional, unqualified. "You're not a scientist, Miss Blake," the attorney said. "You're not even a lawyer." She nodded. "No, I'm someone who listened." He pressed harder. "You took it upon yourself to accuse a corporation of poisoning an entire town." She met his gaze. "No," she said, "they did that themselves. I just wrote it down." Silence. A pause that seemed to last forever. Even the judge looked moved. After 6 weeks of testimony, closing arguments began. Ed's final words were simple. "You can't taste truth in water, but you can feel the difference when it's gone." The jury deliberated for 3 days. When they returned, the foreman's voice trembled. "We, the jury, find for the plaintiffs. Total damages, $333 million, the courtroom gasped. It was the largest direct action settlement in U.S. history at the time, a moral earthquake disguised as paperwork. PG&E's lead attorney slumped back in his chair. Reporters bolted for the doors, and Erin Blake, the woman who once couldn't afford daycare, had just brought one of the world's biggest corporations to its knees. She didn't smile, she just whispered, "They finally heard us." The headlines came fast. Small-town clerk defeats corporate giant. Record settlement in California toxic water case. But for every headline, there was a counter-narrative, that it was luck, or emotion, or manipulation. PG&E never admitted wrongdoing. They called it a goodwill settlement. Yet behind closed doors, their policy manuals changed overnight. New filtration systems, new safety disclosures, and most importantly, lower chromium discharge levels across multiple states. In Hinckley, the water is clearer now, but the scars remain: physical, financial, emotional. Many residents left, unable to trust the soil beneath their feet. The town's population dwindled, but its story lived on. Law schools began teaching it as a case study in environmental justice, not because it ended corruption, but because it proved something larger, that ordinary people can make law matter again. Erin Blake didn't become rich. She became relentless. She went on to investigate other corporate abuses, always with the same conviction. The truth, once uncovered, doesn't belong to one person. It belongs to everyone. Years later, when asked what kept her going, she said, "I never wanted revenge. I wanted recognition for the people nobody noticed until they were gone." The courtroom is empty now, dust on the benches, echoes of a verdict long since filed away. But somewhere, a light still flickers in a kitchen in Hinckley. A mother fills a glass from the tap. She takes a sip. It tastes clean, because one woman refused to stop asking questions. And somewhere, perhaps in another town, another woman is opening a forgotten file, wondering why a real estate case includes medical records, and deciding to look deeper, because once the truth finds one voice, it rarely stays silent. This was the dark verdict, where every case whispers one truth. Even justice has a shadow.